Corner kick USA. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you all around this soccer world of ours. Alex Fidryshevsky coming to you from the White Eagle Marketing Production Studio here in Pittsburgh for today's edition of Corner Kick USA. Flying solo, time to delve deeper into the realm of North American soccer. This update's going to focus, obviously, on the national team. They're coming off the hands of some downright embarrassing performances. You had Mexico 3-0 in New Jersey. That could have easily been 4 or 5 go against them. Troubling draw with what was basically Uruguay's B team. And then last night came the kicker. 2-0 at Canada. It's the first loss since 1985 to the Canadian national team. So let's cut the crap. The national team is in a crisis. Major League Soccer and some are a big part of the problem. The USSF and its leadership is an equal part of the problem. Development is clearly in a stagnation point for all of those organizations, and we're using a core group of players that are just flat out not good enough. Specifically, the ones here in Major League Soccer. We've got a big problem. The Canadians, they wiped the floor with what was an uninspired team. Hell, even the Canadian MLS players wrecked the MLS-based Yanks last night. Their European players outperformed ours. Canada was hungrier than us last night, and it showed. Now, here we are, back to October 2017 all over again. We had Taylor Twellman on television after the World Cup qualifying debacle in Trinidad. What are we doing? What are we doing? Well, here we are 2 years later. What are we doing? Let's ask it again. What are we doing? Because we got worse over the course of the last 2 years. There's some red flags being raised about the soccer community here stateside regarding to the managerial situation with Greg Berhalter. This is a script I'm going off of right now, folks, that I wrote after the Mexico game that I never recorded because I just didn't have the time. Because I was too busy with my own business. Greg Berhalter is Exhibit A of what's wrong with the U.S. Soccer Federation. The fact that that guy is the national team manager. Nothing against Greg Berhalter. He had a stellar career overseas. He was a fantastic player. But was Greg Berhalter really the guy for the job? Or was he just the guy who was connected? One interview. U.S. Soccer. In over a year. And we hired the brother of an executive who was fired from second division Hammarby in Sweden in 2013 for being too defensive. Who did an okay job with the Columbus Crew, fighting a stacked deck because you got an owner in Columbus who wanted to move the team to Austin. Now, I don't want to say the guy major leagued it and that they were playing with Pedro Serrano and Tanaka and the wild thing Ricky Vaughn. He had a little bit more than that. But he did okay. Was that enough to be the manager of the national team? We had Jesse Marsch going and getting his badges in Europe. Look at what job Jesse Marsch is doing in Salzburg now. Was Tata Martino worth passing over? Let's look at Berhalter's style of play, which the U.S. really doesn't have the talent to be successful with. And with national teams, it's tough to implement a style of play that really grabs hold because you're only getting together a few times a year. This possession-based philosophy sees Berhalter's ideal to disorganize the opponent, spraying balls out wide and trying to quickly find its way into the center and then back out wide into space. It's not working. Not with the MLS-heavy roster that they've been calling in over the last couple of months. Mexico Tata replicated what Berhalter wanted to do and ripped the United States apart. He realized that this crop of American defenders, here's looking at Aaron Long, Walker Zimmerman, and the rest, can't handle a high press. They exploited it in the Gold Cup, and the only player who was capable of making long balls out of back in that match, Tim Ream, they shut him out early on. It was all downhill. They pressed him from the opening whistle, and they punished the United States for it in that game. And that was the one in the Meadowlands where we got our clocks cleaned by them. Last night, there's really not much to analyze as far as the X's and O's of what happened. Canada dismantled the United States. They were tactically better organized. Their manager out-coached ours. There's very little to talk about at this point because we have hit rock bottom. We thought rock bottom was the day we didn't make the World Cup, that there was no way it could possibly have gotten any worse until last night, losing 2-0 in CONCACAF Nations League match to Canada, giving them their, again, first victory over the United States in 17 tries since 1985. It's sad to say that we are somehow in a worse place on October 16th, 2019, than we were on October 11th, 2017, the day we were nursing our wounds about missing the World Cup the night before. And I know people are going to say, well, Dempsey hit the crossbar. Well, it didn't go in the net. Didn't go in the net. So what are we doing, rant from Taylor Twellman happened. People blamed Bruce Arena because he didn't clean up the mess. People blamed Jurgen Klinsmann. They said he made the mess. We all demanded better from the Federation. We got Greg Berhalter. And as far as I'm concerned, hiring Berhalter has been nothing short of a tactical and roster disaster. We're disjointed. We're way too defensive, trying to play a style that we're not really fit to play, especially with the MLS players. We're sitting back and absorbing against teams that we should be going after. Roster-wise, it's an even bigger mess. Other nations are looking to Europe as the be-all, end-all, because it is. It is. You watch the games over there, and I'm not talking about the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, Ligue 1. I'm talking about the Russian League, the Belgian League, Celtic, Rangers, Rapid Vienna, Red Bull Salzburg, Red Star Belgrade, Milan Borjan, Canadian goalkeeper. He's playing in Champions League with a powerful club. What are we doing? What are we doing here stateside? Loading our roster up with highly paid, under-talented Major League Soccer players. And yeah, we brought in a bunch of Europeans yesterday. But is that a couple guys over there going to bail out the MLS players that are getting run off the field? And what's it even say even further? That Canadian MLS players took house to our MLS guys. Aaron Long torched again on the second goal. Was Reams' header a little out of place? Sure. Where's the defensive midfielder to break that up? Aaron Long takes 3 steps forward instead of tracking the runner, balls in the back of the net. Dan Lovett's nowhere to be seen on that play. And quite frankly, this goes beyond when are we going to be done with Michael Bradley? I'm going to take it a step further. When are we going to be done with all of them? These guys are making $800,000, $1 million, some of them here over that Bradley. No competition for their roster spot. No threat of relegation. And half the teams make the playoffs. Great way to get ready for major international competition. Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David did a great job last night. Arfield. Guys facing big competition all the time over there in Europe. And people are going to go, oh, he plays in Scotland. He plays in Scotland. He's at Rangers. He played in the Championship. And he was at Huddersfield when they were in League One. How good is he really? Better than anybody we had on the field last night. And I'd take Rangers over just about anybody in MLS by multiple goals. So what's the solution to the problem. First off, we know that Greg Berhalter ain't the guy. That U.S. soccer has a serious internal problem that it is not addressing. And that this goes way beyond who the manager is. Because Greg Berhalter obviously isn't good enough. But why did we miss the World Cup? Why are we still going to the well? What's going on here that we are still going to the well with these MLS guys? We have kids that performed so well at the U-Age World Cups and in these tournaments that we were fascinated by. Fascinated by. But we keep going back. Why? Why do we keep going back to Michael Bradley? Why do we keep going to Josie Altidore? Seems perennially injured at this point. Gyasi Zardes. Jordan Morris did a little bit better last night, but he stayed home for a puppy dog a few years ago. It's okay to say that because he did. When you look at how you break down a roster, why aren't we bleeding our kids? Dare I say the Canadians have gotten better at it than we are? I think that's safe to say. Were they at a better level? At every position across the field last night. And that included a very frustrated Christian Pulisic. Where do we go from here? Berhalter out is trending on Twitter and started trending minutes after the final kick. U.S. men's national team was out trending presidential debates. Yeah, there's 50 of them now, and each side's got 50 candidates, so the first 35 debates really don't matter. But the U.S. national team losing to Canada out-trended a political debate at the national level, a presidential debate. In a politically charged decade. Let's face it, the 2010s are going to be defined by politics. Everyone's divided. But the national team took precedence last night on Twitter. There were more people hashtagging USMNT than there were anything else for a period of time. I watched it trend after the game. So that means people woke up their eyes and went, wow, this is bad. Now, how do you fix it? Obviously, first you start with the manager. Greg Berhalter isn't ready. He's not good enough to be the U.S. national team manager. Who is ready? I don't know, but we can find someone better. Personally, I'll go back years. I thought they should have let Klinsmann finish the job. But it was clear that the locker room was divided, that the federation didn't like, that he wouldn't toe the line. And Bruce didn't finish the job either. Brought in the same old guys. Bedoya, Dempsey, all of them. As I recall, they wanted to be carried across a puddle to go train because they didn't want to get their precious little boots wet. It's high time in the national team at this point that we find a way to shove off all the domestic prospects out of this country. Being in MLS past the age of 22 or 23, what's your worth to the national team? It should be none at this point. We're 20-something years into MLS. We've developed players. But instead of seeing them push on to the next level, paying these guys big bucks, stay home, be a superstar. Yeah, they're superstars, all right, when Aaron Long got run off the field this entire calendar year, not just for the national team. He's been pretty rough for Red Bull, too. As hot as he was last year, The league failed to move him, failed to cash in, paid him, and now we're back to the Beasler-Zuzi theory that I used to throw out when JJ and I did television. Those guys went through the same realm at Sporting Kansas City. We've learned that these MLS lifer defenders can't play at the elite level. They were the first two to show it. They had big starts to their careers. They weren't moved abroad to go push to the next level, to go fight and compete for a spot every day. They got those fat cat contracts. Seeing the same thing happen right now, 5-6 years on, with Walker Zimmerman and with Aaron Long. 26, 27 years old, weren't moved on after strong starts to their prime years, in spite of legitimate, if not overshot, interest from a number of clubs. They got fat cat deals in these U.S. cities, and it seems that they've stagnated. Again, like I said, look at Long. He had a howler of a year, club and country. Nick Lima. Yeah, everybody says, oh, he's a bright prospect. He's 24. He's 24. He's middle-aged for a soccer player. Now, he's decent, maybe a step above of the MLS grade, too. As Long was, as Zimmerman showed to be. But at 24, if he ain't moving, he's going to get stuck in the same hole. Lima got a late start to his pro career. He went to college. Nothing wrong with going to college. Get a degree. That's great. Well, everybody's got a degree at this point, but we don't do politics or any of the social stuff. He went to college. That set him back. Whether you want to admit it or not, that set him back 4 years. Dan Lovitz is 28, 29 years old. This is another head scratcher. Why are we bringing him in at outside back? Look down that depth chart at the U23, the U20 levels. It's far more important than bringing in a guy like Lovitz. It's essential that we make sure that unless they're hurt, these prospects are there. It's your Reggie Cannons, your Miles Robinsons. And these are the guys who also have to find their way out of Major League Soccer to reach their potential. Now, business-wise, and I've harped on this early on here already, that may not happen. Major League Soccer making a habit out of overpaying everybody these days. So they may well end up as lifers. Going to be great for their bank account. That's about the only thing the league is doing good for American players. Great. They're getting bank. Bad for the national team. Bad for the national team. Great for the bank account. Bad for the national team. These U20s who played well at the U20 World Cup, they're in that boat. It's your McKenzies, your Araujos, Keita, Real, they're teenagers. MLS is a fine place to learn as a kid. But like I said, when you're 22, 23, you got to be ready to make the next move because otherwise you're going to stagnate. Further down that defensive list, core group overseas that unless they're injured, they got to be in consideration at all times. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys haven't been healthy. But still, John Brooks, Matt Miazga, Vickers, Anthony Robinson, Yedlin, who else we got? Fossey, Shaq Moore. You've got guys there that unless they're hurt, they're overseas, they're at a higher level than Major League Soccer. They need to be in. People say, well, this guy's playing at right back for the Colorado Rapids, and he's sitting at Levante. The guy at Levante is going through a tougher training and against better quality in practice than the Colorado guy's facing in a game. Give me the guy on the bench in Spain any day of the week because he went. He's in it. He's fighting for it. When you look in the middle of the park, who have we had over the course of the last 6 to 12 months? Will Trapp didn't get pushed on, stagnated. Christian Roldan, who, if I'm a betting man, I'm not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, I'd put my money on that he's not leaving the friendly confines of Seattle. Sebastian Lletget reignited his career in MLS, but he's probably not leaving it again. You have a couple guys who really have bright futures. Jackson Ewell, Paxton Pomykal, especially Pomykal, who needs to be bumped in the next year. He's that good. There's a European crop in the middle of the park. They're solid. They should be making up the core of this team. They've pushed themselves on to the next level. Whether they start or not, they've gone. For a guy like Kellen Acosta, who didn't make the move, hard to ever justify his inclusion in the squad ever again. He's in a bad situation in Colorado as far as the club's concerned. It was probably in the way, the antithesis of what the guy needed to have happen to him last year. You have U20 MLS guys, Durkin, Cervania. If they can get outside the league, it's benefit of the national team. They might make more money in the long haul in MLS because of how much money they're paying some of these Americans now. But we have to remember that where our guys' talent-wise really lies. We're paying guys who'd be playing League One in England 10 times more than League One players in England make. So we get League One results. I mean, hell, Berhalter left Josh Sargent off the roster in the Gold Cup in favor of Zardes. And yeah, Zardes is his guy from Columbus. He's an MLS guy, and I'm sure that some people love his inclusion. But the claim that Zardes at 27, 28 in MLS is doing marginally well is more important than Bleeding Sargent, the kid who spurned the advances of Major League Soccer for the Bundesliga, is absurd. There's nothing that Zardes is going to teach Sargent. He's got to be in the mix at the top of the heap going forward. The last few friendlies, this better part of this year, Cordy Baird was in the national team. Hadn't been impressed watching him at the club. Looks lost at the country level. There's better options in the pool. But who's in the league? And who's deeply entrenched in the U.S. leadership for soccer? How close are those relationships? Answer that for yourself. When you look at players like Amon, Weah, Novakovic, Soto de la Fuente, they're the future. Going back in the past, Zardes, Josie, Michael Bradley, even a guy like a Jordan Morris who's not that old, but it's not doing anything to push the national team forward. The overseas and MLS-based overseas destined prospects are our future, and bleeding them is the right choice for growing the national team in the right manner. And I would have rather seen a bunch of 19 and 20 and 21-year-olds get crushed by the Mexicans in the Gold Cup and in the friendly, and watched a bunch of 19-year-olds lose to Canada last night with their best team against our prospects and say, you know what? This is about 22, 26, and 30. But that's not what we did here. Some will say, well, they're not ready for the national team. Well, how do you get them ready for the national team? If they're overseas already, that's a step up in my opinion. They're ready if they're over there. Some people say, well, they're on the bench. Like I had said earlier, well, he's on the bench. There's an MLS starter. Okay. So we should take the guy who's the League Two level player in England, because he's starting for New England, over the guy who's sitting the bench or fighting for time in Zwei Bundesliga or the team in the Netherlands. Got it. Like I said, we got manhandled by the Mexicans anyway, so why not just throw the kids in the deep end, reap the benefits when they're fully ingrained, when we hit World Cup qualifying, when we go to 26 and we're the hosts. And when we got announced for 26, we all said with the prospects coming through, 26 is our year. If we're going to make a run, I'm not saying the U.S. is going to win a World Cup, but if we're going to make another one of those deep runs in the World Cup, 26 on our home soil with those guys is when it would happen. That was 2 years ago that talk started, that's going to be our time. What are we doing to prepare for that? Nothing. The European-based contingent now, the kids from the U20 quarters, the guys coming through, they should be good enough for direct qualification for Qatar. That's without saying. I've called it out for years on TV. I did it on the radio when we were doing Sonic games. So this is going back to, 2014. That our MLS American youths need to push abroad and test themselves. That hasn't changed. Best teams in the world have their players where? Europe. Doesn't necessarily matter for some nations, but let's take the U.S. because we turn this domestic to show. It's not unreasonable to state that our national team level guys should be there and that they should look at it as a step above MLS. I've said this before all the time, too. I'll say it again. There's a good 20 leagues in Europe, top divisions, that are better than what we have, plus some of their second divisions. To name them all, I'd be a big breath. But to say it on the safe, every league in the top 15 of UEFA coefficients ahead of Major League Soccer, maybe even the top 20. We need to develop the bite in our youth players that we don't see in the MLS-based guys that are in their prime or coming down on the other end, like a Michael Bradley. That's just the players. I'm not quite sure how long I've been recording because I've been kind of going back and forth off the script. A half hour already. Just on the players. Just on the players. I haven't even touched on the structure, the organization of U.S. soccer, or how disjointed we are in our leagues. We have leagues where they pop up, they go, they die. Teams pop up. We're going to do a great job. Oh, I don't want to fund the money. They go. Everybody thinks they're going to do it better. Everybody thinks they're going to do it better. Without naming any of the other leagues even. They all think they're going to do it better. Well, we didn't like this guy, so we're taking our ball and going somewhere else. We'll start our own. If you're not working together, you're not going to succeed. We're too disjointed at the youth level. Travel soccer is a mess. School soccer is a disaster. It is, let's face it. High school soccer, it's a mess. We smashed, 16 games into 2.5 months and call that a year? Great year, see you next year. 14 to 17, these kids should be playing more than that. More than 16 games in 2 months. And yeah, okay, you say, well, we have MLS academies now. MLS teams have academies and there's travel. You're getting told 6 things by 6 different coaches at 6 different times of the year. Not good enough. The NCAA does soccer all wrong. It's a fall sport. And fall sports run from August 1 to December 1. How many games are they playing? 18. That's a good year. Right. So the 18 to 22-year-olds that go to college, what happens there? The little short sprint NCAA season, and then they're off from December to May, and then they turn around and scramble for USL. What's it now? USL 2, PDL team or an NPSL team. They're scrambling. Oh, I got to get my summer soccer in. I hope I can find a host family so I can go play for the Big Town Bees, where we're going to play 10 games in a month and a quarter, maybe a month and a half, 2 games a week for 5, 6, 7 weeks, and then we're done again, and then I'm off the entire summer, off in July and go back to college in August. Haven't even touched anything with that. Might as well get JJ in here. We can do show after show after show. I just talked about how Greg Berhalter is not good enough and how our players need to go abroad. Took a half hour. We could spend another half hour talking about how disorganized we are in player development. We could spend another half hour talking about the U.S. Soccer Federation's disorganized structure right now. Another half hour on the NCAA alone and how messed up their situation has become with soccer. And you could even throw out some theories. Why isn't the season the semesters? Sounds great to me. 15-week fall semester, 15 games. Maybe even you could play some double weeks. Same in the spring. Get another 15 to 20 games in. Now if you're playing 40 games, there's something there, and you're playing a schedule. You play till maybe week 1 of December, right before finals. Pick back up again somewhere in the middle of February, end of February. Go to the end of the school year in mid-May. Maybe you stop right before finals week. But again, that's something for another time. The bottom line here is we're not doing this right. We haven't been for a while. And now it's really bleeding through. Trinidad and Tobago ripped the Band-Aid off of the problem in U.S. soccer. And it never got better. We didn't fix the problems. And yeah, you can't fix them all overnight. But there are some simple philosophical things that we could have changed that we didn't. The manager was the first rough choice. The president of the U.S. Soccer Federation was another rough choice that we've got to live with right now. These are the decisions that these people made. And now U.S. Soccer is wearing an egg on their face. They're damn lucky that Cuba is the third team in the group. Because if the third team in the group was Bermuda, right now I don't know if we can beat them. They just beat Panama. Yep, they gave up a bunch to Mexico. So do we. We're lucky that it's Cuba, because that should probably assure passage into the Gold Cup. But is that an excuse? Are they going to turn around in a month, keep Berhalter, and say, well, this time we beat Cuba, so we're in, and what happens if they lose to Canada again? Or if they draw? Or are they going to defend it if he beats Canada and say, well, look, he split? We've invested billions into the game. We're theoretically light years ahead of the Canadians when it comes to this sport. Not anymore. They've spent more time developing players and are developing better players than we are. Their domestic players are better than ours. Right now, last night, their Europeans outperformed ours. We got to do a gut check here in U.S. soccer. It starts at the top. That includes Greg Berhalter. Technically, not the man for the job. And that didn't even involve me going into the X's and O's of these games. Very little bit about what Mexico did. I didn't even waste my time talking about what happened last night. It was uninspired, it was lethargic, and it wasn't good enough. JJ and I will be back soon. We're working on an interesting opportunity. So make sure you follow me at Fid Sports, FYD Sports, and JJ at the Soccer Yank. And we'll keep you abreast with what's going to be coming here. And I think at this point we should probably call it a day for Corner Kick USA. And sad to say, this is the United States losing to Canada as the sticking point of the first one back. Gotta love it. But that clock on the wall is ringing, so it is time to head on out. God bless, and safe sailing from all of us here at Corner Kick USA. Ciao.